Have you been a permanent resident of Canada maybe yesterday or maybe even 20 years ago? And has your PR card expired while you're outside Canada and you're really wondering, what can I do to again come to Canada as a permanent resident? If you are into that kind of a circumstance, probably this video will be useful for you. My name is Niladri Mukherjee. I'm a regulated Canadian immigration consultant. I practice in Mississauga, Ontario, Canada. So there is a lot of case these days that I see of late is that the clients are there, clients have been there outside Canada because of any personal circumstance. Their PR card has expired. In some cases it got expired a couple of years back, and in other cases it got expired even 20 years ago. And now, based on the current circumstances, folks are thinking whether they could come back to Canada, whether they can work in Canada, whether they can retire in Canada, because at one point in time they used to be the permanent resident of Canada. Conceptually, before even we begin talking about this, what you have to understand is that PR card is a document that is usually issued for a period of 5 years, and that obviously expires at the end of that 5 year if you do not renew it, right? But the expiry of the PR card does not really mean that your permanent resident status has expired at the end of that 5 year. In other words, for example, if your driving license expires at the end of 5 years and you do not renew it, that does not really mean that you have never been a driver before. It's the same analogy here. In other words, if you have not intentionally or proactively revoked your permanent resident status, and your PR card has expired, you are still a permanent resident of Canada, and hence Canada always will give you an opportunity to at least hear your part of the story, to decide whether your permanent residency could be given another chance or not, if you will, in simplistic term. But there are many ways to approach this issue, right? Many a times I hear that, well, I have approached this prominent lawyer and the person said that, well, I could do a border representation for you, come to Canada through United States in a private vehicle, and then I could represent you in the border. That's going to cost maybe $10,000, and that your PR will be given, you'll be given a PR automatically, and that's a seamless process. No, it is not that seamless of a process. This is definitely one of the options, but probably not the best option for majority of the folks for a couple of reasons. So what are the reasons, what are the options that you have on the table, right? If your PR card has expired, there are 2 or 3 options that we can potentially think of based on your circumstance. One option, as we have just discussed, you have a US visa, you try to enter Canada with solid documentation, and then try to present your story to the immigration officer at the counter and see if they, hear your part of the story or not. It's a complicated process. It's not a smooth process, if you will, right? The other thing that you can do is to apply for a permanent residency travel document while you're outside Canada, and then try to convince an officer to give you a travel document even though your PR card has expired. So essentially you are providing them documentations to have them hear your part of the story. This is the process. If you are thinking of undergoing the second part of the process, which is to apply for a permanent residency travel document, I would have to tell you that this is probably, it's a little complicated process because you're not interacting with a CBSA officer at the counter, but this is a very technically strong process because you have to present a lot of documentary evidences to potentially satisfy all the questions that an immigration officer has. Now, whether you should try to enter Canada through the United States in a private vehicle, or whether you should apply for a PRTD knowing the fact that your PR card has expired, is completely dependent on your personal circumstance. And if you would like me to discuss your case to sort of let you know what needs to be done, a consultation is the right approach. Go to the website novonation.ca, choose the PR card expiry option, come for a consultation. We'll be more than happy to help. But generally speaking, there are a couple of things that I would want you to keep in mind before you even approach this kind of a situation, either through the US thing or application of the PRTD. You can always come to the Canadian border, or you can always make an application to get a permanent residency travel document. You have the right to make any of those things if you fall under any of those categories. This does not really mean that your voice will be heard. This does not guarantee that your application will be approved. What really guarantees the chances of your success, if you will, is how strong your documentation is. The majority of the cases that I see is that clients come unprepared. Clients apply for the PRTD unprepared, and then they come for consultations to tell me, to ask basically, what can I submit through web forms, these and that. You do not want to do any of those things. If you want to apply for a PRTD, make sure to submit a 100-page document in support of your application easily. If you plan to come to the United States to Canada border, make sure you carry everything that you should and have answers ready for all the questions that the border officers are going to be asking you. So preparation is the key, right? Secondly, either of these options, either application of the PRTD or coming to the US border, you probably would need legal assistance either from an RCIC or from an immigration lawyer. And regardless of whether you want and help from an RCIC or an immigration lawyer, the person should be experienced enough to be dealing with these kind of cases, because these are complicated legal options. Thirdly, both of these processes are quite expensive in nature. Expenses vary from case to case, but you are easily looking at about 4,000 to 5,000 Canadian dollars as your potential legal expenses for either of these options. It could be even higher, right? That's something for you to keep in mind. Lastly, as I have said, in my previous time as well, documentation is the key here. This is a legal process, right? So how you are presenting your documents to immigration, what kind of storyline you have, what kind of points that you have been prepared, will either make or break the situation. So in a nutshell, if you have been a PR, yes, you could still be a potential PR in Canada, provided you qualify, number one. And secondly, if you do qualify, there is no guarantee that your application will be approved. Is it worth a try? 100% yes, if you would like to be a Canadian permanent resident one more time, but that try will have to be a proper legal attempt in making sure you are following all the obligations that have been set aside under relevant sections of the Immigration Refugee Protection Act of Canada and the associated regulations. Please do not come unprepared. Please do not make a PRTD application without even knowing whether you should apply for a PRTD or not. Yes, you may have an appeal, right? And you can potentially go to the Federal Court of Canada to appeal if you receive a negative decision. But that will be another expensive and very time-taking process that you probably do not want to get into. So either come prepared and give your best shot, or let's not attempt this process. But if you want to be part of this process, and if you would like me to consult you to at least tell you that what could be done, or if you need me to professionally assist you with A to Z of the cases, either border representation or application of a strong application for PRTD, come for a consultation. That will be the first step. Be more than happy to have a discussion with you to understand your case, to review your documents, and then we'll tell you what needs to be done. I hope this helps. If you need me to consult you, hop into the website novonation.ca, book the relevant consultation, PR card expiry, and I will be more than happy to have a word with you. Hope this helps, guys. See you. Bye now.